Yeah, sure. So I graduated from Miami in 2015 and then went straight to Ohio State, actually, the School of Medicine there. And that's kind of where I started medical school, 4 years there. And then this last March is when we match, and I matched into University of Washington in Seattle. My partner John came with me, luckily, and so I matched into emergency medicine. And what that kind of means is like we rotate in the ERs, but we also rotate in the ICUs here, the operating rooms, and kind of different places to get a good flavor and a good vibe of everything.
Hi, I'm Steven there. Cohort 5, studied chemical engineering at Miami. Right out of school, actually like 2 weeks after school, I started working right away for Anheuser-Busch. I accepted a role as an operations group manager, so I was in the operations department. So I did that for about 6 months. Then I got a new role in the logistics department, so I was in charge of our primary materials all coming in for the packaging lines. Did that for about a year. And then just this past March, I got a promotion into the brewing department where right now I'm in charge. I'm pretty much just a process engineer.
Of course. So my name is Jean-Paul Mugizi. You can call me JP. I graduated from Miami Leadership Institute around 2014. I did software engineering and computer science. After that, I moved to Seattle, where I was part of the IT Career Foundation program at Boeing. Spent a few years there and then ended up in the federal government working on a program that started with President Obama around getting more newer technology into the federal government.
I graduated from Miami in 2017. I had majored in biomedical engineering with a concentration in bioinformatics, and I had computer science and Spanish minors. So right after graduating, I started work at Eli Lilly in Indianapolis. And for those who don't know, Lilly is a pharmaceutical company. We're probably best known for insulin. So we make about a third of the world's insulin, but we obviously have medicines and other therapeutic areas as well. And I work specifically in medicines development IT.
I am Jessica Gertz. I was part of cohort 1, and I graduated in May in 2014. So when I graduated, I moved up to Green Bay, Wisconsin to start working for Procter & Gamble at a toilet paper mill. So we make toilet paper, paper towels, and puffs. And as you can imagine, our demand is through the roof right now. So we're working very hard to get those cases out the door.
So my name's Ann Poindexter, and I graduated this past May. I was in cohort 6, and I'm currently a first-year medical student at the University of Cincinnati. So I kind of went to more school. So that's kind of what's been keeping me busy.
I was kind of thinking about this, and I think that really schooling in general just kind of gives you the toolbox that you need, like the different type of tools and the way to go, and then you bring that with you to whatever your career might be. Like, you're not going to use every tool in the toolbox, but knowing what tool to use when is kind of the challenge of going into a career. And a lot of real world problems too are just like super messy. They're not like the basic, right? Like it's an essay form and you fill out, or multiple choice. Like real problems kind of suck, and not suck, but are just harder to manage.
Right.
And so like we take care of a lot of opioid users, for example, in the emergency department, and keeping those people alive is actually probably the easiest part, and probably the part that I learn in med school, and what you kind of learn as you go through your schooling. But the other things surrounding that, like that person's probably homeless, like where are they going to go after their ED stay? and hey, they probably have a mental health disorder, an addiction disorder, and what are we going to do to manage that? And so kind of looking at all these different things and not just answering the one question is what makes kind of real world problems harder, but more rewarding in the end.
One of the bigger things too is not a whole lot of people like right out of college are put directly into a management role, especially where you're managing people that are your parents' age, that have been doing things their way for decades, and it's sometimes pretty tough for them to take a kid like me coming right out of school to like I'm their manager. So it's a very interesting dynamic getting used to that too when in college. Like you're not doing any of that. The Leadership Institute puts you through experiences like that, but going out and actually doing it where you're managing people and like that's affecting their career and accountability with people that are your parents' age is pretty difficult.
It's really increased diversity in my job and probably many jobs compared to college. I think specifically the big obvious one is age, right? So
For sure.
College, you're surrounded by everybody that's 18 to 22 years old. So I think there's, for me personally, there's definitely an obstacle of, building up my self-confidence to be like, okay, I have as much to add to this project as anybody else. Now, there's obviously like some humility in saying somebody who's been at Lilly for 25 years has different experience than I do. That's fair. But instead of, looking at those people who are our parents' age and saying, oh, I don't know if I can speak up at this time, and I don't know if my idea is going to be as good as theirs. That's something that was a big obstacle for me to kind of reframe that and say, okay, no, like I bring a different set of experiences. I probably have maybe some more relevant ideas as it relates to technology than some of these people, and that's valuable. So I think, just understanding, hey, like I deserve to be here. They hired me for a reason, and I have a voice and I need to use it.
I think for me, when I was at Boeing, I got to a point where I definitely felt like I needed to do something that had a more of a social impact.
Mm-hmm.
Boeing is great. It's a great company. They build airplanes, of course, but I think switching gears into the federal government kind of showed me how technology can be used for good, and it can be used in ways that help a lot of people, especially vulnerable populations. So that's something that I wanted to get in, and I think being part of the federal government program allowed me to have that social impact. One of the places that I've been, I definitely had to navigate how to be. I joined a team that had a different culture, and I felt that I was not being included or respected in what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
I felt that there was a lot of like hurdles into trying to kind of like what I'm doing is being accepted, or just being trusted as part of the
Right.
team. And definitely Professor Mormon was very helpful. We had a long conversation on the phone about navigating conversation with my manager and my teammates.
Yeah.
And that definitely took a toll, and it was kind of an unexpected obstacle, because I felt like once I had a lot of expectation, a lot of good expectation about like that particular company that I joined, and then it ended up not being what I thought it was.
Yeah.
So it kind of took me off guard. It's like, how do I navigate this?
A situation that I was actually in very early was as a department leader of a paper machine for the very first time. So I'd been there for a couple of years, done some quality work, reliability engineering, and they put me in a role where I was now the manager of all the people on the machine. That machine was actually only running half schedule at the time. So we had 2 teams that ran it for 3.5 days straight, and the machine would shut down for a few days. There was a crisis in the company and really with another mill, and they suddenly needed our line. This is my first 2 weeks in this role, to go from having 2 teams to having 4 teams and running 24/7. So I had to very quickly navigate, how do I split up the skills I have on these 2 teams into 4 teams to have the right distribution. I took in bodies from another area of the plant that did not have experience on a machine before. It's not that type of machine, and find ways to split them up. Those are really real implications to people's lives and schedules too. On very short notice, you're telling people, hey, you thought you were going to have these weekends off and these days. Some of them have spouses and kids that they've arranged childcare for. So trying to be sensitive to all those needs, weigh out all the options, but also you had to make a decision very quickly.
We have this saying at Cincinnati where every day, like, you get 2 pancakes and you have to eat the pancakes. And because next day you're going to get 2 more pancakes.
Right.
And if you don't eat your pancakes, you're still going to get more pancakes the next day.
Yes.
And like 2 is reasonable, but like once you get up to like 8 and 10, like you're not going to finish the pancakes.
Can't do that.
So I say all of that to say, like, you have to eat your pancakes every day. Like, you have to watch lectures, you have to review things, and like, you can't stop that train.
Yeah.
And that kind of pressure and attitude has been a lot of what's kind of pushed me through this time of like, I still need to learn this material. So
yeah,
we're going to figure it out.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is those soft skills. And I remember Professor Mormon always teaching us the soft skills. And, you have to remember like conflict resolution and your communication style and your leadership style. And I remember sometimes, right, like you don't really see the light at the end of the tunnel, but especially now when I chose a path where I'm actually not using probably any of my engineering, curriculum, the 4 years that I spent. But what I am using is a lot of the soft skills. So conflict resolution, for example, like learning to manage with nursing and other consultants all the time in the emergency department. Like, you have conflicts all the time, and being able to, keep things professional is really important.
I'm realizing this actually, my biggest learning probably came from the time I was a TA rather than a student.
Yeah.
Because it was kind of a different role. But the phrase that kept coming to mind, especially over the past few weeks, is like, this world, it's not about you. I think about like the feedback that we get as medical students. In most contexts, like, feedback is really hard to hear. But it is well-intentioned. It's meant to grow you no matter what.
Right.
And within like how I'm learning right now, like, I would much rather a standardized patient in a simulation tell me I'm being mean or condescending or like not explaining things well. I'd much rather that be the case and learn how to do that than potentially marginalize a future patient. So like, the Institute taught me to really desire that context and understanding of why people act the way that they act. Because otherwise, like, you can make false assumptions and destroy teams.
Tactically, you're, especially like junior year, right? We all say this, but you're like put in this like fairly high stress situation, even different for you guys having to go with this change like a month before your conference is supposed to happen. But it gives you that opportunity to figure out how you do respond in those situations. And, I said I deal with a ton of different type of people at work. And so just recognizing people are different from me. I'm not working with everybody that's the exact same. And that's okay. And that's good. And that cultivates creativity and innovation. So I think, as students, you can be like so drilled into, I have to finish this equation for differential equations class, and like that's what my whole focus is on. Like, have I ever used any of that in my job? No, I'm not saying that nobody ever will. But I think the higher perspective around leadership and communication and developing yourself personally, that's been what's been super applicable in my job.
The other thing is coaching, because we do a lot of coaching to our operators. Like, it's not accountability. It's just like, hey, this is what happened. Here's how you should do it in the future. And then that's kind of tracked in a way. But the way that the company approaches it versus the way that I kind of do, because of what we learned in the Leadership Institute, is like, we don't have the answer. We're just trying to get them to figure out the answer on their own. And I think that goes lengths, like with how, without knowing the answer, you're not biasing the questions, that, if that's even a word, that you're not making the questions biased to get to the point where you want them to get. Instead, they're getting to the place that just makes the most sense.
Right.
As I kind of said, you know, when you go into the workforce, there's a much wider variety of people than college. Yes, there's a lot of diversity in a college campus too, but there's a lot even more diversity in both generationally, especially too, in the workforce. Some of the stuff, even the simple things like early on in Lockheed Martin, we learned how to know our Myers-Briggs and work with others. So I found that very helpful. I am a huge extrovert, and not everyone functions that way. Being able to both understand, right? I can usually, even if the other person may not know they're an introvert, or all the different other ways that you know, thinking, sensing, feeling, I can usually start to pick up on some of those things and try to be more sensitive. Sometimes I try to just make myself quiet down, right? Allow that quiet, empty space for people to think and process without all of my words. I'll even be very open about the fact when I'm working with new individuals and teams, hey, I know that I think by, here's how I operate. I know that I think by talking out loud, and sometimes I talk too fast, and kind of putting that out there makes it safe for them to, you know, I'll encourage them, please call me out if I'm going too fast. You know, let me know.